this also comes cancel culture, right? So the whole idea of cancel culture, this is not a new phenomenon. Cancel culture has been around for eons. We probably were calling it something else, and so forth, right? I think the terminology culture came about 6-7 years ago, right? Specifically on Twitter, right? So cancel culture really just means that I'm not going to put my attention or money or support behind a person or organization because they've done something that I don't agree with. I mean, think about your own life and so forth. Many times you've done that and not necessarily called it cancel culture, right? But that is the terminology that we use. Oh, before I carry on, I see we have some results from what is the most common part of communication in discourse. I'm just gonna go ahead and put this here so we all can see it. That distinguish it as uncivil insults, which makes sense, right? And who wants to be insulted? But then how do we react then when somebody insults you, right? And then this is what, and I'll talk about this in the future slide, but how then we react to those insults is then what determines where this conversation is going to go, whether we're going to turn it into a digital escalation or whether you will just walk away. But then when it comes to cancel culture, this is really what it initially was, but now it's been changed and also weaponized to be, it's lost its meaning. Now people are taking it and saying, hey, I resent you drawing attention to my crazy ideas, right? So it's people are now taking it and using it and saying, well, I'm a victim because you don't um, you don't agree with whatever ideas why are you canceling me and so forth. But I'm going to give you an example of how cancel culture and again and chambers come together. One example I have is Starbucks. If you all recall last year, Starbucks had a situation where it banned its employees from wearing apparel or anything that showed support for the Black Lives movement, right? So they couldn't wear any of their personal um, things from home to work. And the reasoning behind that, Starbucks said, is because they were trying to protect the workers from anyone who might come into the store and feel some type of way of seeing the partners wearing their apparel. And of course, in the story went viral. Before they knew it, the hashtag boycott Starbucks had taken a life of its own, right? Cancel culture had come into play. And also the idea of echo chambers, right? It was posted somewhere. And someone was like, yes, this is exactly what's going on. Everybody, let's jump on the bandwagon and let's go boycott Starbucks. I will say from a personal note, I know I have a friend who works at Starbucks, and I remember reaching out to her at this particular moment and asked, I'm like, hey, what's going on at Starbucks? And then she went and she actually explained it in a way that I was like, oh, so why didn't Starbucks explain it that way? And all it was is that Starbucks has a policy even for supporting any movement, any organization, they have a policy in place where they partner up with a third party and create merchandise and t-shirts and this, that for their partners to wear. So they were in the process of doing that for the Black Lives Matter movement. It just, the t-shirts were not ready yet. And so they were saying, no, we're not saying don't wear this. However, we are creating our own t-shirts that support the movement that we were going to give to the partners. But this is not how this message was presented to the media. And therefore, they were on now a boycott Starbucks. And to this point, they have not recovered. I have friends who will not go to Starbucks anymore, right? Because of this particular incident. And so they had to come back and say, Black Lives Matter, we continue to listen to our partners and so forth. But this is an example of, again, cancel culture. People, both Starbucks and both the public didn't take the time to hear and to listen to each other for understanding. It was just like, no, Starbucks say don't wear Black Lives Matter things, let's cancel them. Rather than Starbucks also coming out and saying, this is our process, we do, and so forth. So this is one example of cancel culture at the corporate at a corporate level. But of course, we have so many also examples where it's an individual, right? And where they now are being threatened, have lost their job, and so forth and so forth. And so these are things that we have to think about. But even when you think about boycotting Starbucks and also canceling people, then that also brings the conversation in of trolls, right, and examples, right? So digital media has really given people the platform to attack even when it's not necessary. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying people should not have boycott of Starbucks or not. What I'm bringing across here is that in some instances, we have people who have been attacked for maybe things that they shouldn't have been attacked for, right? Because it lacked context, or because just, the trolls took it. So trolls, let's talk about who those are. Who in here has ever been a victim of a troll? Let me see if anyone is saying anything in the chat about trolls. Or who wants to admit that they're a troll?
That's a whole different can of worms, right?
Yes. So when we are thinking about cancel culture, thinking about bullying and everything else, and uncivil discourse on social media. Oh, say Michael Burns. It did not happen to me personally, but our TEDx had been trolled. Burns, do you know who was trolling your TEDx Facebook page? And as much as we talk about disregarding trolls, and as much as we talk about ignoring trolls, unfortunately, there can be a really powerful force on digital media, again, because of that idea of we don't know who you are and you're hiding behind this filter. And sometimes, they gather in forces with the intent to hurt. Michael Burns says, no, it was some kind of fake name and it matched the troll on YouTube as well, right? And typically it's with the intent to hurt. As you can see with the definition of a troll here is somehow they manage to cross the line, and it's because they're trying to get a reaction, right? That's what trolls typically do. They are here to get a reaction from you, to get you to say or do something crazy, and so then they can move on to their next victim. I mean, best way to do is really block them if you can, right?
Dr. Ngondo, do you think there's been an increase over the last year in trolling and cyberbullying, with people not having maybe as much to do because of COVID?
I'd say, I think so, right? I mean, we're now, for the most part, people were at home. People were people were on digital platforms more than ever. I didn't have that graphic up, but I know I talk about this in my social media class about how there was just an uptick of people creating more content, an uptick in engagement on social media and so forth, because we were at home doing nothing. So yeah, we had more time to engage and more time. And if you think, even when you say because we were at home, you also remember that last year, right, it was also campaign season. So there was that element added to it. But not only campaign season, we also had, civil unrest. So there was that element. And then people were just had lockdown fatigue. And so, it was just layers and layers and layers. And of course, most of this manifested on social media and people going at each other, right? Yeah, and sometimes exactly people just want to be provocative.